Welcome to episode 538 of salsidoparanormal. And tonight I'm wrapping up my series on the complete books of Charles Fort. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me, at the podcast page. And that is salsidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions, or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live streams on Discord, or if you listen on the podcast or YouTube feeds, or on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of 2 episodes of the show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. As always, I want to thank Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, as well as Liam Martin, host of the Eggs on Minds podcast, for producing my shows and putting them up on the station, along with the music that you hear at the beginning and the end of every episode. If you'd like to support the show, there are some different ways to do that. You can always share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can also find my Patreon page that has 1 extra episode of the show per month, True Paranormal Stories from the Web. I'll be recording that one for this month pretty soon here, as soon as I can. And you can also find books I've written over on Amazon. Paranormal fiction and nonfiction, or you can make a one-time donation through PayPal as well. Help is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows, and I'm legally blind, so I live on a fixed income. So there's expenses such as research materials and equipment, and in some cases, travel expenses as well. So. Again, never expected, but always grateful whenever anyone is able to help. So yeah, this is sort of I've been debating on what exactly to call this episode. I guess we'll find out when I make the upload to everything. But this is really just to wrap up the whole series of shows I've been doing for a while now on the complete books of Charles Fort. And it's really been amazing to go through all those books and just get them summarized in a way. So I didn't really read them word for word. That's a lot of reading to do. I've sort of read through little bits and pieces. I've heard them read it before on different other podcasts and different parts of them. And there's a lot there to read. So having them summarized through the use of an AI platform really did help with just sort of getting through all the information there, because there's just so much. And but even so, with all that, I think it did a pretty good job of getting just an overview of the whole thing, which is really what we wanted, because no one wants to read through all those books in a series of shows, especially when it's not your own book. I don't think that's really the best way to do it. So if you really are curious about those books themselves, definitely go check them out. They're available. You can find them online for free in PDF forms, but there's also, you can get them through Kindle and on just different devices and things. And so I definitely recommend checking those out if you're curious about Fort's writing style itself. It's definitely unique. It's also, I mean, these are written back in the early 1900s to 1930s, 1920s, 1930s. So the writing style, even just without Fort's sense of humor that he has, that you'll find if you read much of his stuff, it's still a different, slightly different style of writing than maybe what you're used to if you have just been reading sort of current books. And I say that because I've been listening to another book for a future review I've been listening to the audiobook version and just the basic one, just like a free like AI, well, not even AI, but just a screen reader version or a computer read version of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I will be reviewing at some point here soon. Not next week. Next week I'm going to do two true paranormal stories from the web episodes, because I didn't do one this week because I wanted to do this show to finish off the Charles Fort series while it was still fresh in my mind. So, but so and anyway, back to my point about that. I'm really all over the place tonight. Is that the further back in time you go, the more different the writing can be, I think. So anyway, going back to what we're talking about tonight here, I thought I would just pull up a couple of just entries on basically just the Wikipedia pages here on Charles Fort and the books that we reviewed in these shows. So talking about Charles Fort himself here. He was born in 1874, passed away in 1932, and he was an American writer and researcher who specialized in anomalous phenomena. The terms Fortean and Forteana are sometimes used to characterize various basically unexplained things. That's basically what it's all about, is things that we might call paranormal or supernatural or just unexplained today. They're also known as or referred to as being Fortean in nature. So let's see here. His I lost my spot. So he did write some fiction as well as these nonfiction books that we've been covering. But these are the nonfiction ones, of course, were the ones that I was the most interested in. And so he was always basically into writing, but then he found these topics, and I think I imagine it really caused attention, and just like it does a lot of people, and that's what got him into it. So, and he in the last of the books, the Wild Talents, he even talks about sort of trying out some little experiments on his own and with his wife to sort of generate or experience paranormal events in his own place and in his own life, which is really amazing in a way, because he's already been looking into these things for who knows how many years at that point, and then he's trying to research these things as well. So I thought that was really neat. But getting to the first of the books that we covered, which is the Book of the Damned. And this book, it's basically about, let me see here. You know, find the little description it has here in this document. It's a nonfiction. It's basically his first nonfiction book that he published, and it concerns different kinds of anomalous events, including UFOs. Again, way before that term was around, I believe. Strange falls of both organic and inorganic materials from the sky, odd weather patterns. There we go, and the possible existence of creatures generally believed to be mythological, disappearances of people, and many other things, other unexplained events as well. And it's considered to be the first of the specific topic of anomalistics. There's the word. So yeah, I'd say that's a good description of that book. It really does cover just all things that are unexplained. His other books after that they kind of have more, even though they all do overlap. Each one has their own. It seems like it has its own general idea of what's going on that he kind of thinks about or writes about in those books, and but then again, like I said, I think it is all connected, so there's overlap and connections and things between all the books. So, but that one is the first one. Of course, it has a lot of the talking or the accounts of basically frogs or toads or fish falling from the sky. I believe stones as well, different stones. Of course, there's the case of just when they say organic material. Unfortunately, there is cases of just sort of parts of or remains of living entities. um, Trying to not be gross here, but it's pretty hard with this. Basically, meat that fell from the sky, and so that's a lot of what his first book was. And yeah, the odd weather patterns, um, sort of trying to explain or talking about explanations for all these odd objects falling from the sky as that common explanation for that in a lot of cases being weather patterns, and then he would talk about how it doesn't usually make sense to him. And after reading all that, all those summaries of all those events, I have to agree. So, but yeah, so that was really the first book. Uh, the the falls where that involve living creatures like fish and frogs and toads, that really is amazing because you would think, I mean, how are they still alive when they're falling? Obviously, unfortunately, if they fall from high enough, they may not survive when they land. But how are they alive when they fall? When they start to fall, where are they coming from? And that sort of leads into his next book, which is of course New Lands, and that's a good title for that book because it is talking about other places that are either out in space that we sort of don't have access to, or that are maybe there but in slightly other different dimensions where all these objects might come from and might fall from. So that's sort of his second book. It also talks about weird anomalies, but both the first one, both the Book of the Damned and New Lands, they talk about strange lights that are seen, or even shadows that are seen out in space. And again, keep in mind, this is way before any modern spacecraft could have been out there. So that really is amazing. That was one of the things that blew my mind in and of itself. I mean, maybe if you want to be extremely skeptical, you could possibly write off some of the objects falling from the sky, I guess. But when you have lights that seem to be moving in almost craft-like ways, that really, and it's before any craft of humans anyway, that we know of could be out there, that really was amazing to me. So that was sort of the second book. And then, so the third book really talked about maybe one of the mechanisms for a lot of these events of falls and just appearances and disappearances, and that would be, of course, teleportation. And that is something that it seems to just pop up over and over again in a lot of paranormal things, because if you think about that in terms of ghosts, we don't know how they're able to take or leave objects. We don't know how they're able to get from place to place, sometimes even appearing in one location and then appearing in another location in the space of like one night or less. I've heard accounts of that in rare cases of people that had someone that they know that passed away, and then they would have sightings of this person, what appears to be their spirit, all in the same time frame, and not even necessarily in their sleep or their dreams. Actual sightings while they're awake. So, just all these ideas of teleportation, and really, when you think about that, it's really connected to portals in a way, because is it? I don't even know. Is one possible without the other? I guess maybe, but also I would think you would need to sort of have a portal or make a portal in a spot to send an object to a location, but maybe not. But I think either way, there's connections there. So that was a lot of the third book there, talking about people vanishing and reappearing, or just one or the other. And then, of course, objects. And then there's another thing that, again, that is common among sort of hauntings in that traditional sense of that word, but also in terms of really, if you want to think about it this way, Charles Fort was possibly talking missing 411 before missing 411. But he was talking about this, just reports of people vanishing all around the world in different cases, or appearing in some cases as well. So again, just going back to this idea that he was really not counting maybe sources or people from way back when, talking about things in less of a he looked at these things as anomalies, whereas I think the further back in time you go, a lot of people might think of things more as, I don't know, magic, or just the way things are, because they don't know how to explain it. So he's really one of the first people, I think, in within this last couple centuries to try to look into these things, but also from outside of the point of view of any kind of religious or scientific backgrounds, or in some cases biases, or any of those kinds of things. So hello everyone there in chat, I see you all there. Derek says, with the falls, the creature in the movie, let me see here, Nope, yep, will open up its mouth and suck in objects, then can drop them elsewhere. Oh wow, okay. Like it dropped a bunch of goo on a house, which seemed kind of Fortean, except they knew where it came from, right? So yeah, it's really been amazing with all these things. So that was sort of the third book. And then the fourth one, it threw in the possibility of a lot of these events maybe being in addition to, or even separate from, in some cases, caused by people, abilities that people have had, or do have, or acquire, and then lose for whatever various reasons, to cause anomalous events, fires, objects moving, basically telekinetic abilities, telepathy, just affecting objects from a great distances, basically sort of helping or hurting. Again, going back to that positive or negative, helping or hurting others depending on the situation. And in some cases, it does talk about how there's so many different factors in all that. Ford doesn't even say it's all people doing these things consciously or intentionally. He talks about how we don't even know in a lot of cases how much power we may have, and so but then some people through time maybe have figured out that they have abilities. So that's sort of the last book there, and I think it all ties together. I think it's all can be connected. I think in some cases, people can react to situations and maybe develop abilities suddenly to handle situations, whether it's, again, for positive or negative results, for their surroundings or themselves or others around them. It's just there's so many variables to all that. That's really comes down to for me is that there is no easy explanation for any of these things, and all of these things that I just sort of covered briefly, very briefly, can all be happening and factors in any given anomalous event, to where that's what makes it really hard to figure out what is going on because of all these possibilities. Similar to what I always talk about when it comes to my view of my view used to be of ghosts. It used to be this idea of either has to be a residual energy field that's just playing over and over again, like a tape recorder, or like a movie, or a sound recording, or it has to be the spirit of someone that passed. And over time, hearing all these accounts of all these experiences, not even counting going into this whole series of Charles Fort's books, which are from almost 100 years ago, over 100 years ago in some cases. It just seems like there's so many other possibilities besides spirits. And again, not to say that I don't think that spirits are possible. I believe I've had encounters with a couple over the years, here and there, and especially in visitations from loved ones after they had passed. I do believe that when it's them, I mean, and of course, everyone, we can always be wrong. So that's not to say that anything is foolproof or we can't be fooled. But I think in a lot of cases we can tell when it's someone that we're close to, and maybe when it isn't someone that we're close to, trying to act like that person. And I've had experiences with what I do feel like were loved ones that passed on, that came back to visit me while I was asleep. So. But again, so anyway, that's just one example of that. I think with that, there can be time anomalies where people are seeing into other times and people in other times. And again, these are all things that could tie directly into Charles Fort's accounts of all these different experiences. So yeah, there's countless theories. Yep. Yeah. So that's what really has made this doing this series so much fun, because it just keeps reminding me of little things here and there that I've heard of in more recent accounts of experiences people have had. So that's why it's been so fun to do this whole series. And I'm going to try to look up some other authors who have also done research into these things, that maybe I can get their books and sort of review them. It's going to be harder with more modern, with most authors, because their books are not in public domain yet. So that means I have to, in most cases, I'll have to buy them. So that's why I do say at the beginning of the show, if you'd like to help out with the show, and you're able to and willing, donations would be definitely be used for getting research materials for these shows, buying audiobooks and those kinds of things. So again, not that I like to say that too much, but that is the reason for saying that, is there are so many books that that have come out over the years that I would like to check out and maybe review, but have to buy them because they're not that old yet. So but anyway, yeah, so that's really all I had for this sort of review, this last show of this review of all of those 4 books, the complete books of Charles Fort, the nonfiction ones anyway. I hope you all have enjoyed it. I really have. The next couple of reviews I do will be fictional books. In fact, I already have one done. I just finished listening to Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula today, and I'm going to listen to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein next. And so those will be the next couple of book reviews that I do. The one with Dracula, I'm going to sort of connect that to Stephen King's book Salem's Lot, because there are some parallels. It's not a one-for-one thing at all, but I think that'll be a lot of fun to sort of compare and contrast those 2 books together in that show. So, and that's going to cover it for today. I'll be doing one more week of 2 shows, and then I should be back to 4 shows, maybe more. I've kind of been doing some thinking, and I think I may have a new plan of how to do the research, so that might allow me to do more shows. I'll know when that happens, and we'll go from there. Thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you all on the next episode of Salsidoparanormal. Take care.